In this video, we will dive into the movie The Lion King 2019. We will discuss the movie story, summarize the plot, and explore the cast and characters. Additionally, we will cover the movie production details and box office performance. Finally, we will provide the reviews and personal reactions. Let's begin with the movie story. The sun rises over the Pride lands. Animals from all corners of the kingdom head over to Pride Rock. King Mufasa and Queen Sarabi are welcoming the birth of their cub Simba. The mandrill Rafiki parents Simba before all the animals and they all bow before the new prince. A little mouse is scurrying around his environment until he comes across the vicious Scar, Mufasa's jealous brother. Before he can door the mouse, Scar is interrupted by Mufasa's Honorable Major Demo Zazu. He warns Scar that Mufasa is on his way to castigate him for missing out on the ceremony for Simba. Sure enough, Mufasa arrived to confront his brother just as Scar is trying to make lunch out of Zazu. Scar expresses his dempsey for not getting his place on the throne after Mufasa now that Simba is born. After Mufasa and Zazu leave, Scar looks on with scorn. Rafiki is by his tree where he uses several bugs to form a drawing of Simba on the tree. Time passes and Simba is an eager and curious little cub. He wakes up his father so that he can explore the Pride lands. Mufasa explained that everything in the Pride land is theirs, but anything beyond the borders is forbidden from venturing into. He also tells his son that they are connected in the great circle of the life in regards to his duty as a future king. Zazu then flies in for the morning report before Mufasa teaches Simba how to punch on the bird. Moments later, Zazu tells Mufasa that he has spotted hyenas. Mufasa orders Simba to go to Sarabi. Simba goes to Scar, who rests alone on his own little rock. As Simba expresses curiosity over what is beyond the borders of the Pride lands, Scar tells him that it's an elephant graveyard. Simba then goes to find his best friend Nala, who is in the middle of a bath. Simba gets his own bath from Sarabi before he tells Nala that he wants to go to the watering hole, but Sarabi makes the cubs take Zazu as a chaperone. On their walk, Simba tells Nala where they are really going. Zazu notices them together and notices how good it is to see two betrothed cubs together. There grosses out Simba and Nala, who insist they are only friends. Zazu says those are the rules and Simba says he is going to change some of these rules when he becomes king. I just cannot wait to be king. The cubs lose Zazu amidst the other animals before they head to Elephant Graveyard. While exploring, they are found by a pack of hyenas led by Sensi, Komari, and Azizi. Sensi is ready to eat them once he realizes who Simba is, even as Zazu flies in to warn her that doing so would start a war with Mufasa. She attacks, but Zazu manages to hold her off long enough for Simba and Nala to run away. The pack then surrounds the cubs. Simba tries to roar at the hyenas but merely musters up simple growls. As they laugh and ask him to do it again, a louder roar is heard. Mufasa runs in and fights off the hyenas before ordering Sensi to back off or face retribution. The hyenas retreat, but Mufasa is upset at Simba as he takes him and Nala home. Mufasa has Zazu take Nala home while he talks to Simba. He expresses his disappointment in him, but Simba tries to defend himself by saying that he was trying to be brave like Mufasa. He tells its son that he is only brave when he needs to be, and that he was afraid of losing Simba. They then sit to look up at the stars, and Mufasa tells Simba that the great kings of the past are looking down on them. The Hyenas returns to their hideout, complaining about their lack of food. It is then shown that Scar is leading them, and he deliberately leads Simba and Nala to their path. He then tells the Hyenas about his plan to kill Mufasa so that he will lead the Pride Lands. And this will also mean more food for the Hyenas. The next day, Scar brings Simba by a George to practice his roar. After he leaves Simba alone, he gives to Hyenas the signal to make their move. Suddenly, Simba looks up at the cliff to notice a wild beast stampede. He runs for it and climbs up a tree for safety. Scar finds Mufasa and Zazu, warning his brother about Simba being trapped in the gorge while telling Zazu to alert the lioness. Mufasa runs through the herd of wild beasts to reach Simba. He brings the cub up to safety but is dragged away by the wild beast. Mufasa then starts climbing up the hill only to be caught by Scar, who sinks his claw into Mufasa's paw. With a sinister look in his eyes, Scar tells Mufasa, "Long live the king," and he smacks his brother off the cliff to his demise. Simba watches helplessly and his father falls into the stampede. He runs down and discovers Mustafa's body, tearfully pleading with him to wake up. Scar finds Simba and says it's all his fault that his father is dead. Fearing for the consequences, Simba asks Scar what to do, and Scar orders him to run away and never return. After Simba does so, he sends Shenzi, Kamari, and Azizi to chase after Simba and kill him. Simba outruns the Hyenas to the edge of a cliff where he and the fourth Hyenas fall over. Shenzi orders the other two to make sure Simba is dead, but they figure to themselves that he could not have survived the fall, and they are not eager to climb down and check. Simba is seen hiding before continuing his exile. Scar announces Mufasa's death to the lioness and then says that Simba was also killed. He feigns his grief before walking up to Pride Rock to assume his new duties as king, and then brings the hyenas out. Zazu and Rafiki watch from a distance and mourn Musafa and Simba. Simba walks alone for miles before ending up in a desert. He collapses in executions before a flock of vultures swoop in to try and eat him. They are interrupted by the meerkat and watchdog Timon and Pumbaa, who scare off the vulture before finding Simba. The two decide they should keep the cub so that when he grows into an adult lion, he will be on their side. Simba wakes up and is despondent, still blaming himself for his father's death. Timon and Pumbaa takes him in and show him how they live their lives according to their motto, Hanuna Matata. It means no worries. Since the other animals are friends, Simba cannot eat them and now feeds on bugs. He spends more time with Timon and Pumbaa, now growing into an adult. Under Scar's reign, the Pride Lands becomes devoid of sufficient foods and resources, since the hyenas are bleeding everything dry. Nala expresses concern over how things have turned. Scar even tries to get Srabi to be his queen, promising that she can dine with him, but she refuses. He then has the hyenas eat the rest of his kill, leaving barely scraps of the lioness. Later that night, Nala tries to leave Pride Rock, but she is spotted by Zazu, who knows that Scar will do to her if he catches her leaving. Therefore, he creates a diversion to get Scar and the hyenas to chase him, allowing Nala to get away. After spending a day chowing down on grubs, Simba, Timon, and Pumbaa lay down to look up at the stars. As Timon and Pumbaa muse over what could be up there, Simba mentioned that what Mustafa once told him about the kings of the past looking down on them. Timon and Pumbaa laugh it off, which bothers Simba. He goes to be alone, and as he lays down, some four from his men flies off. It is blown away and goes through a few animals before it finds its way to the Rafiki. He senses that Simba is still alive and he rejoices. Timon and Pumbaa are walking through their home while singing "The Lion Sleeps Tonight" before Nala attacks and chases after them. As they flee, Simba jets out and punches on Nala, but after she pins him down, he realizes who it is. Simba is excited to see his best friend again while Nala is elated that Simba is alive. The two go off together to catch up, leaving Timon and Pumbaa to realize that the two lions are becoming more than friends. However, the happiness is short-lived once Nala tells Simba that he needs to return home due to what Scar and the Hyenas have done. Still feeling guilty, he refuses to go back. Nala leaves him when he becomes too stubborn and doesn't listen to her. Simba wanders off alone until he is found by Rafiki. He tells Simba that he knows Mufasa and that he is alive. Simba follows Rafiki and is led to a lake. Rafiki makes Simba see his reflection, which turns into the image of Mufasa. Up in the clouds, Simba sees and hears Mustafa's voice as his face is illuminated by lightning. Mufasa knows that Simba has forgotten who he is and therefore he forgotten his own father. He tells him to remember that he is the one true king. Now realizing his purpose, Simba runs off to catch up with Nala, and Timon and Pumbaa follow. The four make it to the Pride Lands and meet with Zazu, who is also happy to see Simba again. They see how bare the land looks and why it is urgent that they stop Scar. Simba has Timon and Pumbaa be live bait to distract the Hyenas and to let them get to Pride Rock. Simba sees Scar hurting Srabi when she defies him again. Everyone is stunned to see Simba returning and he goes by his mother's side. Scar tries to turn the table on him by making Simba admit his guilt in Mufasa's death. Scar advances towards Simba, causing him to slip and hand over the edge of Pride Rock. Lightning strikes a nearby tree, causing a fire down below. Scar then brags to Simba over how he looks, not realizing he is openly admitting his own guilt for the lioness to hear. He then whispers to Simba that he killed Mufasa and Simba punches on his murderous uncle. Scar confesses to his crime, but then since the Hyenas on the line is beginning an all-out war. The lions battle the Hyenas while Timon, Pumbaa and Rafiki all get a few food licks in. Simba then goes after Scar, who tries to run away. When Simba confronts him, Scar blames the Hyenas and says that he was planning to kill them for their supposed crime. Scar begs Simba for mercy and Simba orders him to do the same thing he ordered him to do as a cub, run away and never return. Scar seems to agree to the plan but instead flings hot embers in Simba's face. The two then begins to fight, swinging claws at each other until Simba gains the upper hand and knocks Scar off the edge of the cliff. He survives and sees the Hyenas coming toward him. Unfortunately for him, the Hyenas hear him throw them under the bus and they proceed to rip Scar to shreds. The rain falls over the Pride Land to wash away the fire. With the Hyenas gone, the lioness gather around Pride Rock. Zazu and Rafiki allow Simba his chance to ascend. He walks to the edge of Pride Rock and hears Mufasa's voice saying, "Remember with that." He roars before the lioness to become the new Lion King. The Pride Lands return to their former glory, looking beautiful and prosperous once again. Timon and Pumbaa have moved in to be close to their friend. Simba and Nala are now king and queen, and Rafiki present their cub Kiara to the rest of the animals. therefore continuing the circle of life. The Lion King movie review. The Lion King is the third Disney remake this year to offer a new spin off an animated classic, and it also happened to be the studio's best. For surpassing both Aladdin and Dumbo, The Jungle Book directed Jon Favreau return to the world of computer-generated animals is a visually stunning success that will run over fans of all ages as well as making a whole bunch of money for Disney's talking on one of the animation powerhouse most beloved films was always going to be risky and over. But the epic, photorealistic approach feels groundbreaking and offers the impressions of something different. Even though the narrative and many of the shots are practically beat for beat identical to the 1994 movie. One of the things that immediately makes 2019 The Lion King stand out from its fellow Disney remake is that the voice cast is absolutely brilliant. Both young Simba and Nala are bundles of frantic energy and joy with strong singing voice that are showcases during their awesome rendition of I Just Cannot Wait to Be King. That scene also features John Oliver, who shines as Zazu, Mufasa, and Simba's avian advisor. The British comedian does a great job of crafting a performance that echoes Rowan Atkinson's original portrayal, whilst adding a much needed balance of snark and compassion that was lacking in the original. Chiwetel Ejiofor is an absolute highlight as the villainous Scar, bringing a Shakespearean pathos to the proceedings. His splendid singing voice is briefly teased but sagely enscores in a scene that will likely delight and disappoint longtime fans in equal measure. The Doctor Strange actor is joined by a group of Heinis voiced by Eric Ender, Keegan Michael Key, and the powerful Florence Kusomba as their leader. Shanzi, the group are solid as Scar's minion, but the more serious tone of the story this time around means that the Heinis don't manage to recreate the crazed, frantic, and often slapstick energy that made the Outcast such fan favorite in the classic film. Beyonce is wonderful if slightly underscores as a passionate and very adult Nala, and Ronald Glover adds a relatability and thoughtfulness to Simba. The stands out of the cast are Billy Ellinger and Seth Rogen as Timon and Pumbaa respectively. The pair light up every scene they are in with their dedication to doing nothing, their bleak, nihilist humor, and each's awesome singing voice. Timur and Pumbaa add most of the new content to his retelling, with the pair riffing off each other with hilarious results. They also starred in what was for this reviewer the most grass pump including scene of the whole and over when they join JD McCree who kills it, and then Ronald Glover in an astonishing fun and moving rendition of Hakuna Matata. Whilst the voice cast definitely elevates the film, The Lion King is at its heart all about the visuals. At the premiere, Jon Favreau revealed that every single scene in the film, aside from one shot, was completely computer generated. Not that you had know as you watch it. If the Jungle Book showcased the potential of what could be done with computer animation, The Lion King pushes the boundaries even further after feeling like you are watching a nature documentary rather than an animated features. Favreau leans into the with one of the biggest strengths of the film, longer extended shots that showcases small moments in the stunning pride lands, like a trail of ants making their way up the bunch of a tree, a mouse washing in a paddle, or a piece of fur floating across the vast landscape. For the cute baby lions to the elected roster of animals that fill the screen, the animators of The Lion King do a brilliant job of bringing the wildlife of the Pride Lands to life, and for the most part, it works. However, something that lost in the retelling is the visual emotion of the characters. as the film goes for a photorealistic tone that leaves the core cast of animals looking like well animals. Although that might not land with younger audience in the same way as the emotive animated creature that usually fill Disney movies. It does not mean that the more fantastical and musical moment doesn't work. There's a gravity that suits the Shakespearean story that was not there before. But some of the emotional beats don't hit quite as hard. Despite all of the success of the film, it's hard to judge The Lion King completely objectively as it is really just a scene for scene remake of the film that already exists and was arguably ripped off from an existing Osamu Tezuka anime Google Kimba. But with that in mind, Favreau and co do a great job of making The Lion King feel like a worthwhile endeavor that's a game changing in terms of the artistic technique that was used to create it. The film will undoubtedly introduce a new generation of fans to the story while still offering up something different enough visually that fans of the original will likely still find something new to love. Disney delivered their most successful remake yet, a strong cast, outstanding visual, and the classic animal central take on Helmet make the Infinity more watchable than some of the studio's previous retellings. The only issue here is that The Lion King is a beat for beat adaptation that will make even the coldest hearts warm with nostalgia but could potentially disappoint those looking for a new take on the iconic story. The Lion King 2019 movie review. I try to avoid spoiler as best as I can, but that aware that I reference well-known plot points from the 1994 animated version. The Summer of Disney has its final release day today, July 19, with The Lion King premiere in theaters. Since I am a total obsessive Disney superfan and especially for Lion King, I obviously find a showing last night and I am here to tell you all about it. Well, as much as I can without spoilers. The verdicts, I loved it, it's spectacular and epic, glorious. Now let's start from the beginning. I had my expectation firmly in check and we arrived at the theater early to have time to pursue the menu and have a spotty break. Yeah, we didn't have any kids with us, but I was not going to miss a single moment of this movie, so we had to enforce the kid rules on ourselves. I had to ask if they had any leftover posters from the fan events, which they did not, because the fan events was moved to a different Regal theater. That's when we find out our standard show time had been switched to a 3D showing without them telling us. Being old and set in my ways, I was super pumped. I'd fully prepared to see this movie the normal way, and I was not prepared for this last minute change. But after such deliberation, we chose to stay and try the 3D. Ironically, the only other 3D film I have seen was the theatrical re-release of the original Lion King years ago. Long story short, the review is of the 3D version of the film. How does it compare to the 1994 original? The Circle of Life opening sequence of course made me cry and is essentially a scene by scene transition from classic animation to lifelike photorealistic CGI, but this is the only scene by scene remake aspect of the film and it seems to be more of a nostalgia than lack of creativity. There are some serious notes to super nerds like me who can find such subtle Easter eggs as a nod to the CGI scene in the 1994 one, which was a change in focus from the ants to the zebras. It was groundbreaking technology in 1994, and the filmmaker choosing to include it in 2019 warmed my heart. As someone who has seen the 1994 classic so many times, I can basically watch it in my head whenever I choose. I can definitely say this is not a scene by scene update. There are a lot of script change, lots of different angles and shots. The story is the same, of course, as it should be for my husband who has seen the animated film a number of times, but not as many as me. I am probably a world record holder to be honest. He felt like it was really similar cinematically. He also clearly long because aside from the opening sequence, this story is told in a different way. But whatever, he can have his opinion, I guess. The quality of the film is spectacular. The CGI is so lifelike that I desperately want to bury my face in Mufasa's mane and I want a pit line. You know, it is we're not morally irresponsible and unsafe. It's true. The background is so lifelike and the flora and fauna are incredibly detailed. My favorite scene from 25 years ago is Simba and Mufasa under the stars as Mufasa explains about the great kings of the past. This scene was made for CGI with the glorious night sky. I felt like I could reach out and touch Mufasa's mane, ruffle Simba's comfort and felt like I was there. It was magical. The adaptations from animation to CGI is a big jump and this film feels like it's live action. The scene I was most curious about transitions was I just cannot wait to be the king as it has a separate and every 90s tone differing from the rest of the film. Instead of going goofy with it like 1994 did, this 2019 version does something incredibly clever. They use the original choreography but have the animals at the watering hole doing natural behaviors. Finding ways these animals move normally and incorporating it with the former choreography floored me. It's such a creative and unique way to remake the move more realistic while honoring the original. It's the perfect balance. A complaint a lot of early reviewers had about the CGI was the lack of emotion on the lion's face. I did not find them hard to read at all. Their eyes are incredibly expressive, and I thought they did a wonderful job of anthropomorphizing the animals without overdoing it and having it look cartoony or unrealistic. My husband made a wonderful point about this by guessing that whomever has trouble reading the face is not around animals regularly. We have three large dogs and can read their emotions, and reading the lines was no different. Their facial expression was natural, made sense, and looked phenomenal. As far as script change, the overall tone of the dialogue is much more casual than in original. Simba interrupts Mustafa as he explains things, the more realistic parenting moments I have seen on film actually. All of the hyenas jokes are different, as are most of Zazu's. Timon and Pumbaa find their own groove, and Seth Rogen as Pumbaa is especially hilarious. There are moments when the film pokes fun at itself, but overall tackles the story with elegance and grace. One big shift I notice is that almost all of the comedic relief comes from side character. A lot of the humorous moments with the lions is absent. The lions themselves are treated much more seriously. There are very distinctive moments in the animated version that underline how evil Scar is with imaginary reminiscence of World War II Germany. The film takes a different approach with Pride Rock being shown as more prison-like during Scar's reign. Scar himself is very well developed. He honestly comes across as a complete psychopath as opposed to the seemingly simple evil character from 1994. We get a hint of a backstory as to how he got the scar, which we see play out in the revenge against Mufasa. Scar is terrifying here with an omnipresent malicious. The other character that seems the most changes to me was Simba. I feel like he is less likable. The film shows him making the mistakes but not stepping up and taking accountability for them, be trying to protect others, trying to be brave. The animated one shows him stepping in front of Nala in the elephant graveyard, helping her run away, and then facing the hyena's head on while defending Zazu. The 2019 version omits much, if not all, of these brave moments. After Mufasa's murder, when he runs away, it's coward's way out. When he runs away in 1994, it was what he thought was right, That's a big distinction and makes Simba less relatable and unlikable. He has to be flat but not fatly for the audience to want him to succeed. Other characters are given deeper stories such as Shansi, the hyena, Keegan Mitchell. Key is fairly funny, is a grown up short of way. Tha Bonzi and Edie are not in this version. Keys plays Kamari and Eric Ender plays Azizi. They are a duo, but their humor may be above the heads of younger audience members. They are funny, but Timon and Pumbaa will go over better with younger audience. Seth Rogen especially knocked it out of the park as Pumbaa. Musical changes. The musical numbers are the most similar as the lyrics are mostly unchanged. We prepare here the most drastic changes but stays true to the heart of the original. I was hoping against hope that they had included my favorite number from Broadway's musical version of The Lion King called He Lives in You, but instead they gave Bounce a song titled Spirit. It's beautiful but feels a little out of place in where they place it in within the film. But I'm also biased towards the Broadway song I wanted included. Beyonce did a truly wonderful job as Nala, and I had been worried about Nala is one of my favorite characters and Beyonce is known as a singer. But she blew me away and gave Nala a strong and melodic voice that stood up for what she thought was right. As far as the 3D aspect, it was actually really cool. If you have the opportunity to see it in 3D, I recommend it. It's often subtle and so well done that multiple times. I wonder it that little bug was part of the movie or real. It was always part of the movie. It's really well done and enhanced the movie without being distracting. And the 3D trailer for Frozen 2 made me ready for November to be here already. I do agree with other reviewers that this film is definitely created for older audience. The violent scene felt longer and scarier than the animated ones, likely because the animals are so very lifelike. There are a few moments with tangles of blood in their fort, which is jarring. The final battle is especially brutal and intense. Additionally, this movie feels more serious than its animated counterpart, and there are fewer harmless moments to add levity. It's great for older kids, depending on your kid and adults. The Lion King reviews what the critics are saying. Critics have been less than welcoming to the return of The Lion King 25 years after the original release. As of writing, the film holds a rotten score of 57 on Rotten Tomatoes as below the 93 of the original. Common complaints are the photorealistic of the Jon Favreau's live-action adaptation, where critics adore the anthropomorphic singing cartoons of the original. They feared the nature documentary look drove a wedge between viewers and their beloved characters. Some critics praised the fidelity to the original while others viewed the lack of originality. Here is what the critics are saying. Peter Dabdoud said by focusing his attention on upgrading the look of the earlier film while sticking largely to his dictatorial choices and script, Favreau reinforces the strength of the 1994 classic. If you were never a fan of The Lion King, then nothing here will win you over. On the other hand, for those too young over to have seen it, this could be a life-changing experience that strives to create a kind of understanding between audience and the animal kingdom that Disney once made a regular part of its mission. Back in the era of films such as The Legends of Lobo and The Incredibility Journey, it's a shame to sacrifice the hand-drawn artistry, whose human touch will surely hold up better in the long haul, but those are the times with this latest wave of remake and The Lion King at least honor what came before, using current animation technology to convince us that we are watching the real thing. Vulture's Bill Avery says that technically speaking, it's a marvel. Jon Favreau's live-action remake of Disney's The Lion King possesses all the immersive details and tactile evidence of an unusually good-natured documentary. It transports us, we can practically feel the fur on these animals, and we want to duck away from their thundering heels as the camera breathlessly rushes us through trembling grass and craggy ravines. It's hard to imagine that this has all been created in a studio and that almost none of it is real. I'd be a great cause of how did they do that? Expect that they did it so well that you forget that they did anything at all. Ah, the line is singing. Well, how bounce that? I didn't know a line could sing, but there is a real line singing. That's the good news. The not so good news is that having entered the photorealistic realm, the Lion King's mood too has changed. Suddenly, the iconic opening scene with all the animals gathering to bow before the newborn lion cub Simba, held up like some sort of scamper of absolute power, doesn't feel terrifying or moving as it did its in fantastical animated setting. It feels quasi authoritarian. AV Club's AA Doubt. Joyless, artless, and maybe soulless, it transforms one of the most striking titles from the Mouse House vaulted into a very expensive, star-studded Disney nature film. Joyless, artless, and maybe soulless, it transforms one of the most striking titles from the Mouse House vault into a very expensive, star-studded Disney nature film. It's as if every creative decision were subordinate to the film's misguided intentions on realism, on keeping the mannerism and movements of these magically intelligent creatures believable, and so all the players are not just second-hand but diminished. We are watching a hollow bastardization of a blockbuster, at once completely reliant on the audience pre-established affection for its precedent and strongly determined to jettison much of what made it special. USA Today Brian Trout. Was The Lion King really in need of a swap-up version? Nope, the original hold up exceeding well and honestly has the age and overall charm. Favreau at least loves and respects the story enough to do it justice as well as lean into the core theme. The interconnectedness of us all, the circle of life, if she will, it's not just talk about but filled in due ways. That mangy scar with his freaky jewels and Ejiofor's vicious vocals is the new poster boy for brutality. And the moment when Simba tearfully snuggle up next to his fallen father will ruin you all over again. Even more so than 25 years ago because of how immersive Favreau's world and characters are. This Lion King does an okay job roaring to life for a new generation and looking spectacular along the way. The OG, however, will always be the real main attraction. IndieWire Davis Athlinge. Unfold like the world's longest and least convincing deepfake, Jon Favreau photorealistic remake of The Lion King is made to represent the next step in Disney's circle of life. Instead, this soulless charm of a film comes off a little more than a glorified tech demo from a greedy conglomerate. A well-rendered but creatively bankrupt self-portrait of a movie studio eating its own tail. Most often, the animation is just planned in a way that saps the characters of their personalities. Scar used to be a Shakespearean villain brimming with catty and cloistered frustration. Now he's just a lion who sounds like Chiwetel Ejiofor. Simba used to be a sleek upstart whose regal heritage was tempered by youthful insecurity. Now he's just a lion who sounds like Donald Glover. Watching them come to blows against a realistic but dull background suggests that Favreau was so busy trying to figure out if he could, that he never stops consider if he should. Forbes talked Mikkelsen. Yes, the visuals on display is Jon Favreau The Lion King are indeed impressive. The animation and technology that crafted a pretty great adaptation of The Jungle Book 3 years ago are in full swing in this adaptation of the blockbuster 1994 animated gem. However, like too many of these recent remakes of the Disney animated library, the emphasis is on realism at the expense of environment value. At almost every turn, the redo undercuts its own melodrama by downplaying its own emotions. The key direction seems to be like the 1994 version but less. Like with Aladdin, characters explain in detail the choices they are making and the reason for those choices. It comes off like a mix of comic book adaptation of a movie, where thought bubbles and extraneous dialogue makes up for the lack of movement and actors who sound like they have forgotten their lines and are winning it from memory of the 1994 flick. Whether it's just about padding a 90-minute feature to 2 hours or playing to the online demographics that view very attempt at subtlety as a plot hole, these films come off like the original stories retrofitted as para-school cartoons. Watch Alyssa Wilkinson. The photorealism is striking and impressive, but something feels weird about the voice. It's not like people cannot imagine talking lines, of course, but it's distracting in a way that's not real. It's uncanny and disjointed at the same time as if real zoo animals are being anthropomorphized. So the Lion King now has its very own Persian cover album, rendered in intricate, realistic details, a high fidelity B-side of its many devoted fans, but it might in the end leave you wishing for the slightly scores up Valley original. IGN's Rosie Knight. Disney delivered their most successful remake yet, a strong cast, outstanding visuals, and the classic animal-centric take on Helmet make the infinitely more watchable than some of the studio's previous retellings. The only issue here is the Lion King is a beat for beat adaptation that will make even the coldest hearts warm with nostalgia but could potentially disappoint those looking for a new take on the iconic story. The Guardian's Peter Bradshaw. Basically, this new Lion King sticks very closely to the original version, and in that sense, it's of course watchable and enjoyable. But I miss the simplicity and vividness of the original hand drawn image. The circle of commercial life has given birth to this all but irresistibly digiclone descendant. I don't quite feel like bowing, but respect has to be paid to a handsomely made piece of entertainment. The Lion King 2019 live action movie worthy of Pride Rock. 2019 has certainly been the years for Disney to make 90s kids excited. In Disney's latest live action, The Animals of 1994, The Lion King are brought to life. This classic was a favorite for both of us growing up, so needless to say that we have been pretty excited for this one. This week we were invited to be advanced screening of the film, but unfortunately Andrew could not attend due to work conflicts. Julie decided to still go check it out anyway. However, does this reinvented version compare to the iconic film of our childhood? So let's Baby Simba, I cannot just take the cuteness. Disney's The Lion King, directed by Jon Favreau, journeys to the African Siana where a future king is born. Simba idolizes his father, King Mufasa, and takes to heart his own royal destiny, but not anyone in the kingdom celebrates the new cub's arrival. Scar, Mufasa's brother and farmer heir to the throne, has plans of his own. The battle for Pride Rock is revenge with betrayal, tragedy, and drama, ultimately resulting in Simba's exile. With help from a curious pair of newfound friends, Simba will have to figure out how to grow up and take back what is rightfully his. Staying true to the classic story, director Jon Favreau utilizes pioneering filmmaking technique to bring the iconic character to the big screen in a whole new way, featuring the voice of Donald Glover as Simba, Beyoncé Knowles-Carter as Nala, James Earl Jones as Mustafa, Chiwetel Ejiofor as Scar, Seth Rogen as Pumbaa, and Billy Eichner as Timon. Disney The Lion King opened in US theaters on July 19, 2019. Thoughts. I remember back in the 90s, the theatrical preview for The Lion King was the entire Circle of Life sequence. That scene still gives me goosebumps as this movie opened in the same manners with just as much wow factor as the animated version. And from the pad, I was transported into a story I loved by surrounding by furry creatures and mesmerizing landscape. While we normally make sure to do spoiler-free reviews, the funny thing with the film is that there is nothing to really spoil as the movie is almost completely identical to the original. There were so many lines I caught myself reciting along with the character, and I noticed if one had been slightly altered. But even though it was super familiar and nostalgic, I still found myself engaged, waiting to see what would happen next. The production skills involved with this film were mind blowing. The beautiful African landscapes and details look so freaking authentic. I love seeing animals in real life, and so many moments had me convinced I was watching a documentary instead of a completely CGI world. Baby Simba reminded me of my own catties, and it was amazing to watch all of the different animals act as they would in real life. The one drawback to his real animals can never have as much expression as the animated version. With the sad Musafa scene, which anyone should already know, the voice of young Simba surrounded in tears, but the realistic line just appeared to be talking. I still felt moved and misty eyed, but I do wonder, do I have nostalgic feelings from the old movie spilling over into this one? Would I have felt as emotional as if this new version were the only film that existed? I have always loved the original soundtrack, and it certainly set the stage for one of my favorite Broadway shows. The new version keeps the song and adds a new ones through they are more background and end credit type song as new scene. It did seem a little tougher to execute some musical numbers without colorful animation, like I just cannot wait to be king for example. But the singing quality was exceptional and I enjoyed the new voices and small changes. The only exception to this was Be Prepared was a letdown. The landscape is grander and scarier than the cartoon, and I was expecting a big dramatic number, but it just was not so. I think the characters were all very well cast. Young Simba and Nala were adorable. The new Timon and Pumbaa seems perfectly suited for their roles and brought some great comedic relief. There were even a few slight twists on some of the old joke scenes. I found that I missed Jeremy Irons as Scar. He had such a dramatic villainous flair. This Scar was mean and manipulative but in more depressed way. It made me glad James Earl Jones reprised his role as Mufasa. Other supporting characters seems to play their roles well also. Overall, I found the live action of The Lion King really impressive and I came out for the theater very satisfied. It reminded me of how other Disney stories get translated into stage shows. You already know the story, characters, and music, but it is still unique to see it in a different way. The stage here was authentic landscape and realistic animal actors. While I would have liked maybe a little twist and some news at the same time, I may have been more disappointed if the changes were not worthy standing next to the original story. Well, this is not something I would probably purchase a copy of to own. I would most likely destroy the animated classic instead. I do think it is absolutely worthy seeing in the theater. It is gorgeous and a great balance of nostalgia and news. My inner Lion King involving United Kids was transported back to seeing this in theater for the first time all over again, and if you want the ultimate viewing experience spark on the fancy theater, I really do think the IMAX screen and Dolby surround sound version I saw made for an even more impressive experience. Disney The Lion King feels like an unusually good-natured documentary. Is that what we wanted? Technically speaking, it's a marvel. John Favreau's live-action remake of Disney The Lion King possesses all the impressive details and tactile immediacy of an unusual good-natured documentary. It transports us. We can practically feel the fear on these animals, and we want to duck away from their thundering heels as the camera breathlessly rushes us through rambling grass and craggy ravines. It's hard to imagine that this has all been created in a studio and that almost none of it is real. I'd be a great case of how did they do that, expect that they did it so well that you forget that they did anything at all. Or the line is singing, well, how's about that? I didn't know a line could sing, but there it is a real line singing. That's the good news. That's not so good news in that having entered the photorealistic realm, the Lion King's mood too has changed. Suddenly, that iconic opening scene with all the animal gathering to bow before the newborn lion cub Simba, held up like some sort of spectacle of absolute power, doesn't feel triumphant or moving as it did in its fantastical animated setting. It feels quietly ethereal. But of course, the filmmaker recognized that, so now when the old King Mufasa shows the young Simba the extent of his domain, everything the light touches in our kingdom, we now abruptly get some additional dialogue, but how it's not really this. It belongs to no one, but it will be yours to protect. But by and large, this new Lion King hews pretty closely to the animated Lion King, at times even replicating the same shots and editing pattern as the original. And the effects can feel like a stunt, like someone decided to do a scene by scene recreating using real life animal footage. It doesn't help that the characters in some cases have been rendered with such realism that they have lost all human expression on their faces. Maybe that's the idea, to do not anthropomorphize them too much and to stay grounded in zoological authenticity. But they are still talking and singing, only now their faces are inexpressive. It's a wide disconnect that creates an unfortunate hierarchy among the creator, allowing some to shine while leaving others to drift. Asgard, the convincing embedded uncle who kills Mufasa and claims the throne for himself, Chiwetel Ejiofor brings the kind of howling, snarling energy you would expect from a true Shakespearean. He connects to the story regent possession, of course, this way also true of the original, which had the sensuous, slatternly styling of Jeremy Irons. Whenever he is on screen, the film has genuine power. As the grown-up Simba, Donald Glover stays too above the fray. He is ordinarily a fine actor, but here we sense a distance between his character and his voice. It reminded me of how Disney's actual nature docs, the Disney Nature series, will often have the narrator half-perform dialogue of the creatures on screen, just to keep things interesting. As Nala Ponch suffers a similar fate, the talking line might look realistic, but when we hear her dialogue, all we see is Ponch in a recording booth reading lines. The comic relief characters split the different. Seth Rogen and Billy Eichner are delightful as the farting watchdog Pumbaa and his vicious Margaret Peltiman. John Aylward is plung a shaver in Jer's ears, irritating as Musafa's even Stewart Zazo. Favreau's previous talking animal heavy Disney live action remake, The Jungle Book, was a masterpiece, a stylized humanitarian fever dream that transforms the thickets and caves of its wild landscapes into a great stage for its operatic fable of portrayal and belonging. Whenever the Lion King stick with that approach, it works beautifully. Pride Rock, the outcropping on which much of the movie's drama turns and where the animal kingdom fate is decided, looms heavily in the character's mind when Simba takes his final lonely walk to accept his royal Disney, his supposed moments of triumph. We can sense his hesitation. Similarly, Scar's nostalgical performance of Be Prepared, which in the original was a demonstrably studio version of Marching Hinds and Roaring Hellfire, makes of a launching issue of the Circle of Life opening scene instead of making the entire sauna bow before his higher in the morning light. Scar assembles his ghostly gathering of scavengers as he leaps sneering and singing from rock to rock, ragging, contemptuous and prideful. While numbers like Be Prepared and Pumbaa and Timon's gaseous radiation of Hakuna Matata retain their charm, the songs too are uneven in this new Lion King. Clover and Longitude of Can You Feel the Love Tonight is as a piece of audio utterly glorious, and yet it has little impact on screen where for some reason it's performed in total daylight because neither Simba nor Nala has come through as an engaging character. The couple of new pieces that have been added also seems out of place, but that might be because the old songs are so familiar at this point. It all speaks to the uneven impact of this grossly no expense parrot version of The Lion King. It's a starring reminder of what can be achieved with all the talent and money in the world, as well as the cautionary tale of what can happen when there's no vision to bind it all together. The Lion King 2019 movie. Young Simba is destined to become king of Pride Rock like his father Mufasa, but his uncle Scar plots off the throne and Simba ends up alone in exile. Can he ever regain his kingdom? Another month, another Disney remake of an animated classic. There are two reasons but that this film exists, and neither is because anything was missing from 1994 Fury Hamlet. The first is to show off genuinely dazzling visual effect technological marvel that gave us photoreal animal in an absolutely convincing setting. The second is to showcase the ability of Disney and director Jon Favreau following 2016 remaining of the Jungle Book to assemble a world-class voice cast. But it's still not enough to stand shoulder to shoulder with the great king of the past. It does not seem right to describe this as a live action when the visuals were created in the London offices of visual aspects Wizards MPC. Whatever this category, the immediate and overwhelming impression is so lifelike that you have expect David Attenborough to start narrating at any moment. Every hair and whisker is in place, every footprint rises a puff of dust. You will believe that Pride Rock is a real place somewhere in Africa, watching over a landscape kept in careful balance by the stewardship of its great Lion King. Mufasa, he is voiced once again by James Earl Jones because something are sacrosanct even in his mixed up age. Our hero, Mufasa's son Simba, J.D. McRae, replaced in adulthood by Donald Glover, is just as good and clumsy as ever as he takes his first step into the big white world. The big problem with this photorealism, however, is that animal mouths are not designed for words, and their faces do not express human emotion. What we gain in realism, we lose in expression, even in their lips. It is distinctly jarring when these cats speak, and even more when they break into songs. You cannot help but mentally impose the performances of their 2D preceders and see for more, well, animation in the older characters. The emotional gap is somewhat covered over by talented voice cast with Chiwetel Ejiofor making a biter Jet's detective Scar and John Oliver snagging up a storm as the Fuzzy Zozo. But it's not until Billy Eichner and Seth Rogen rocks up as Timon and Pumbaa respectively that the film finds its groove. Favreau give them their head and they inject a much needed shot of humor and energy into all the Shakespearean drama of Pride Rock. For a while they succeed in lifting the space from a steady like big cat talk to a full stampede, at least until Simba's old pal Nala turns up and drags him back to save the pride from evil Uncle Scar's predations. It's all beautifully crafted and carefully conceived without ever entirely justifying its existence. A few Nook songs increase the running time and chances of an Oscar, yet mean it sometimes drags before the last minute return to reclaim his throne. The Lion King movie review Disney remake adds more style than substance. The Lion King is good because the original animated movie was great. Thus, it does feature stunning CGI that Disney is clearly excited to show off. The latest of Disney's live-action reimagining of films from its animated classics, Walt is not actually a live-action movie at all, but the hyper-realistic CGI remake of The Lion King is recent years. Walt Disney Studio has started taking its most beloved animated movies and translating them to live action, sometimes making major changes and other times sticking as close to the original as possible. Directed by Jon Favreau, who helmed another CGI-heavy Disney reimagining in 2016, The Jungle Book, The Lion King falls into the latter category of remaining true to the original 1994 animated movie. The Lion King is good because the original animated movie was great. Thus, it does feature stunning CGI that Disney is clearly excited to show off. The Lion King follows young lion cub Simba, played by J.D. McCree, and Donald Glover, who is raised as Prince of the Bright Lands and expected to become king after his father. Mufasa, played by James Earl Jones, with his friend Nala, voiced by Shahadi Wright Joseph, and Beyoncé Knowles-Carter as his queen. But Musafa's brother Scar, voiced by Chiwetel Ejiofor, plots with the lion's enemies, the hyenas Shenzi, Kamari, and Azizi, to take over the Bright Lands. To execute his coup, Scar kills Mufasa and convinces Simba it was all his fault, but the hyenas fail to kill Simba like they are made to. Instead, Simba runs away and is taken by Timur and Pumbaa and grows up with them far removed from the Bright Lands. However, Simba's past and his responsibilities catch up with him, and he realizes he must return home to make things right. Directed by Alfre from a script by Jeff Nathanson, Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man No Tales, The Lion King is a very strict remake of the original 1994 movie. Because the films was crafted using animation and CGI, the major difference between the two largely account for the style in which they were created. While the 1994 film used unrealistic styles animation, Favreau's Lion King focused heavily on realistic portrayal of its animal characters, at times to its own detriment. There's only so much a watchdog or a marketer or a lion can physically do. They cannot convey emotion the way human faces do. They don't actually speak English and they cannot perform widely extravagant musical numbers. Instead, Favreau and his team supplant animal expression and mannerism on the characters, like Timon aggressively standing up in the manners of real makers, making them more real, but causing them all to feel much more flat in the process. The spectacle of the moving stems from the feat of creating hyper-realistic animals rather than anything the animal actually do. As a result, the animals of the Lion King are more animal than human, which creates an emotional distance that they must be bright by other aspects of the film, and which largely falls on the shoulders of the voice actors. Because Disney and Favreau assembles an outstanding cast, they help to bring these animal characters to life with a great deal of humanity. Macri shines as young Simba, embodying the lion cub's arrogance and devastation in equal measure. But with much of the movie focusing on Simba's childhood, it's difficult not to feel as if Disney wasted the voice talents of Glover and Knowles-Carter thought, do they sing Can You Feel the Love Tonight together? Eichner, Rogen, and John Elvers are well suited to their roles of Timon, Pumbaa, and Zazu, respectively, and they are tasked with much of the updated, more modern comedy in The Lion King, which works well enough. Ejiofor is good but not particularly memorable as Scar, while Jonas again embodies the regal, and voiced Mustafa with gravitas. One thing The Lion King has going for it is space and sheer spectacle in its CGI rendering of the animals. Disney proved they could animate hyper-realistic animals with the Jungle Book, and they take it a step further by constructing the entire cast of The Lion King with incredibly realistic CGI. Certainly, it's worth marveling at just what Disney has accomplished with the film, even if certain scenes come across as overlong sequence of the studio simply showing off. Much of the additional 30 minutes to The Lion King's runtime in CGI spectacles, which may work for those coming to see the movie for that very reason, but comes off as braggadocious to those irritated by these spectacular seasons, slowing down the overall pace of the movie. Viewers are looking for a movie worth supporting on IMAX this summer. The Lion King is undoubtedly it. Ultimately, The Lion King is only as good as it is because it's working off the excellent 1994 animated version. The story, much of the script, and the majority of the music all come from Disney's previous film. The studio and Favreau put a more realistic spin on the animal characters, but the difference is not necessarily better. It's simply a different style that has its own advantages, as with the stunning CGI animals and disadvantages like the restrictions of reality taking away some of the magic of the premise. Thankfully, the story of The Lion King is good enough to transcend mediums, still the retelling is sure to strike an emotional chord with those that grow up watching Disney's animated original. And this latest live-action reimagining seems bound for success thanks to a mixture of nostalgia and spectacle. So while Disney The Lion King reimagining is a perfect enjoyable movie-going experience, it may leave some viewers wanting more or wanting to watch the animated classic instead. The Lion King 2019 box office performance. The Lion King 2019 is the movie that does good in the box office and earned 1.6 billion. Box office. The Lion King rose with 192 million debut. Simba and Mufasa regained supreme this weekend as Disney's The Lion King dominated box office charts. Director Jon Favreau's remake of the animated classic collected a massive 195 million from 4,756 North American theaters during its first 3 days of release. The studio initially reported that The Lion King debuted with 185 million, but that number increased when final sales were retailed on Monday. And yet another win for Disney, the movie landed the best domestic launch for a PG film and set a new record for the month of July. That figure also represents the second best domestic debut of the year, behind Disney and Marvel's Avengers Endgame, 357 million after this weekend, and Bino Vista Company now holds 5 of the top 6 biggest movies of 2018 so far. Overseas, The Lion King filled the love with 269 million for a global start of 433 million. The film launches in China last weekend and has since earned 98 million, boosting the worldwide haul to $533 million. We have a lot to celebrate, Kathy Toff, Disney's president of global distribution, said on a Sunday morning call. The Lion King has such a resonance in pop culture that you see all different types of people coming out. People wanted to be part of this. The state-of-the-art technology used to bring the Pride Lands and its inhabitants to life draw a polarizing response from viewers, but the newest version of Disney's Crown Jewel proved to be critic-proof, and the prospect of hearing Donald Glover, Simba, and Beyoncé Nala harmonized to Disney's classic were irresistible. Moviegoers flock en masse and to much enthusiasm to see Simba's grand return to the big screen. The Lion King holds an cinema score. Audience also shelled out to see the hyper-realistic movie in the best quality possible. IMAX Theater accounted for $25 million of tickets sold, with 36% of global ticket sales came from 3D screens. The Lion King provided a much-needed jolt to the domestic box office, hitting into the weekend box office receipts were pacing over 9% behind last year. Now theatrical earnings are down just over 7% according to ComScore. The Lion King is already one of the most recognizable stories across the world, but the remake benefited from an equally buzzy voice cast, including Clover as Simba, Beyonce as Nala, Chafter Ejiofor as Scar, and Billy Eichner and Seth Rogen as Timon and Pumbaa. James Earl Jones reprised his role as Mufasa from the original movie. The updated version also included a new song from Beyonce. Disney has reimagined five of its classics to mostly consist success outside of The Lion King. 2017 Beauty and the Beast had the strongest start with 174 million, followed by 2010 Alice in Wonderland launched with 116 million. In 2016, Favor of the Jungle Book earned a strong 103 million in its inaugural weekend in May. Guy Ritchie's Aladdin debuted with 91.5 million and is approaching the 1 billion mark globally. However, Tim Burton's Dumbo stumbled with $45 million earlier this year. In a banner weekend for Disney, the studio is now home to the highest grossing movie in history. Avengers Endgame grossed 2.78 billion at the global box office, officially dethroning the 10 years record of James Cameron's Avatar. Since other Hollywood studios refrained from releasing a movie against The Lion King, a number of holders filled out domestic box office charts. In a distant second place, Sony's Spider-Man Far From Home collected $21 million during its third weekend in theater, lifting domestic ticket sales to $319 million. The web-slinging superhero adventure has generated $569 million at the international box office. Disney and Pixar Toy Story 4 landed in the third with 14 million. In 5 weeks, the animated movie has generated $375 million in North America and $859 million globally, making it the seventh Pixar film to surpass the $800 million mark. At number 4, Paramount alligator thriller Crawl generated $6 million for a domestic total of $23 million. Rounding out the top 5 is Universal musical rom-com Yesterday, which pocketed $5.1 million during its fourth weekend of release. The movie has grossed $57.5 million to date. Among spectacularly released Sony Picture Classics opened its documentary David Crosby, Remember My Name, in 4 locations, where it earned $41 million. Meanwhile, A24 expanded Ludovine's The Farewell to 35 locations in its second weekend, generating a promising $1.17 million. The comedic drama started Aquafina debuted national on 2.1. Live action Lion King tracking for biggest Disney remake opening weekend. The Lion King is projected to rule the box office this summer and could set a new record for Disney's live-action remake. Over the last several years, Disney's interest in reimagining their classic animated movie has grown as a result of some massive box office success. It began with Alice in Wonderland, grossing over $1 billion at the box office in 2010, which has later followed by The Jungle Book, just coming short of that mark in 2016. Then in 2017, the remake of Beauty and the Beast dominated the box office on its way to a $1.2 billion haul. With Aladdin now out in theaters, the next live-action remake that Disney has coming up in The Lion King, which is one of their most popular animated movies ever. Thanks in large part to built-in interest, many have anticipated The Lion King performing exceptionally well at the box office. The trailers have not shown a lot as Disney appears to be caught playing off the nostalgia a large percentage of the population has for the title. With under 2 months to go before it hits theaters, the first real sign that those feelings will translate into Disney's financial gain are here. According to Box Office Pro, the long range tracking for The Lion King is anywhere between 180 million and 230 million. Their current projection is almost right in the middle, with the site expecting The Lion King to open to $201 million domestically. If The Lion King does land somewhere in this range, it will have the biggest opening weekend of any Disney live action remake, breaking Beauty and the Beast record of $174 million. An opening of this size would be a massive start for The Lion King and continue Disney's great year at the box office. They currently have the two highest grossing movies worldwide and domestically in Captain Marvel and Avengers Endgame. It is important to remember that this tracking is still several weeks out and the eventual critical exception will have some impact on actual opening weekend projections. With Jon Favreau directing and a star-studded cast that includes Donald Glover, Beyonce, Seth Rogen, Chiwetel Ejiofor, and the return of James Earl Jones, there's a significant appeal for The Lion King already. Should The Lion King meet these projections, which include a $600 million domestic total, Disney live-action remake practice could only grow. They have Mulan coming out in the first half of next year, with Cruella starting Emma Stone set to close out 2020. There's also new take on The Little Mermaid in the work, as well as Lady and the Tramp heading to Disney Plus this year. Disney even has sequel to their remake on the way, with Maleficent Mistress of Evil moved up to his fall and The Jungle Book 2 in early development. If The Lion King hits as big as these projections say it will, then it may only be a matter of time before Disney starts working on Lion King 2. The Lion King 2019 movie reviews. The Lion King 2019 recently directed Jon Favreau defended his remake of the animated classic The Lion King to USA Today, saying it's not completely a shot-for-shot remake. Upon hearing this, I became hopeful that this remake might be similar to his version of the Jungle Book, which had its flaws but took a new approach to Mowgli and to the ending that I appreciated. Now having seen new remake, I am quite baffled by Favreau's words because aside from the visuals, I saw no noticeable story difference between it and the animated classics. It's as close to a shot-for-shot remake of a film as I have ever seen. Critics David Ajit compared it to the remake of a Sakobus Gus Van Sant, and he is absolutely correct. Of course, the new version of The Lion King will make boatloads of money, but if you are asking for the critics' advice, I would give it a definite skip. Let's start off talking about the film's greatest strength, the visuals. Despite Disney reluctance to use the term, they are an incredible achievement in animation. The reason I believe they have not wanted to use the word is because it is one thing to remake an animated film with live action, but to remake an animated film with another animated film feels like even more of a copycat than all the others. Particularly in wide shots, the photorealistic is impressive. It seems hard to believe that everything down to the smallest blade of grass is fabricated on a computer, and yet that it is the reality. If people want to see this film from the visual alone, I would not fault them, but I guess I was hoping to have more to recommend given the original film is such a favorite of mine. There are other positives like the voice cast and all component and the music songs are well executed. However, I was a little disappointed. Only one song from the Broadway musical is included as song as over the credits, and the one original song "Spirit" is just an accompaniment to transitional scene when the characters are walking. I was hoping it would be part of a new narrative for Nala, but that is not the case. The only song I did not like was their rendition of Be Prepared, which felt like such an afterthought. It's one of my all time favorite Disney villain songs, and it came and went through making any impact. There was no spectacle or gravitas, which made Scar as much as interesting villain. The best part of the film character-wise is Timon and Pumbaa. Their scene, while identical to the original, have the most energy and life to them. They are also the closest to being believable as actually talking and singing animals. With the lion and other characters, their mouth movements never quite work, with their faces not matching the words lyrics in a natural, easy way, maybe because real animals make individual sounds like a purr or a roar rather than formulating whole words. There's also a problem with the photorealistic characters' inability to emote in a way a 2D animated characters can. Little Simba in the original can have big tears well up in his eyes, and his whole face can be full with the emotions of losing his dad. That's not possible with the photorealistic line, therefore rendering the scene one note and flat. Coming out of the film, I felt it might actually be a better choice for young children under 5 and than the original. For this very reason, the tense scenes feel more clinical when realistic, therefore they are not as devastating to the viewer. If a child can handle a nature documentary where animals are in peril, they should be able to handle what they see in this remake. I know when my brother used to watch the original, he would get very upset at the dramatic scene, and I don't think that would be that in case. My friend disagreed with me, and I felt might it be scarier to young kids because it is more realistic, so I suppose it depends on the child. It is less emotionally manipulative than the original, but that also means it is less impactful. Unfortunately, this lack of emotions investment strips the Lion King of what makes it special. It becomes an exercise in checking off boxes for the story that we know and love instead of anything remotely memorable. The recent version of Dumbo had lots of problems, but at least there was some attempt to offer a new take with different version of the characters. This is just bland. There are two ways around it. It's bland, bland, and bland. My advice is save your money, stay home, and watch the original classic film. Mufasa only needs a fraction of 2019's Lion King 1.6 billion box office to achieve a huge milestone. Mufasa the Lion King has massive box office expectation to meet after 2019 The Lion King, but it will still achieve a huge milestone with a fraction of its overall gross. The prequel or sequel to Jon Favreau's live-action The Lion King comes 5 years after the remake of the beloved animated movie shattered box office projection. The 2019 movie overcame negative reviews to be one of the biggest box office hits of the year, grossing over $1.6 billion. That snaggled Disney to look for ways to continue the franchise, bringing audience Barry Jenkins, Mufasa, and Scar-focused prequel. The Lion King franchise has always been a huge draw for audience at the box office. The original 1994 animated movie made 771 million, not adjusted for inflation, during its original release, but its total now stands at 981 million thanks to multiple re-releases over the years, making it Disney's highest grossing 2D movie. The over 1 billion average of the animated and live action films box office all puts more pressure on Mufasa to be big hit. While it's unclear exactly how mighty the latest franchise entry will be with the audience, it should help the franchise cross a significant milestone. The Lion King is 356 million away from becoming a 3 billion franchise at the box office. Heading into Mufasa the Lion King, the overall The Lion King franchise has a box office total fit for the King of the Jungle. The franchise has made over 2.6 billion at the box office by combining the earning of 1994 animated film and 2019 live action remake. To be more specific, the original film made 981 and the remaining accumulated 1.6 that brings the Lion King franchise box office to $2.6 billion, which put it only 356 million away from surpassing the 3 billion mark. Becoming a $3 billion franchise at the box office is a fairly big deal for the Lion King. There are several sprawling franchises that have surpassed this total throughout history, but doing so with only 3 films would be quite impressive. That's something not even Star Wars, Harry Potter, Transformer, Despicable Me, or the Marvel Cinematic Universe could do. In fact, The Lion King is only the second movie franchise to hit 3 billion, with 3 films are favored as James Cameron's Sacrifice series Avatar did in 2. Will Mufasa the Lion King's box office make enough to achieve this milestone? Mufasa the Lion King is left in a position where it does not have to worry about matching 2019 live actions movie box office haul to help the franchise cross $3 billion worldwide. The 356 million needed means Mufasa only has to make a little more than 20% of the Lion King's box office for the franchise to move into this new tier. There is a reasonable expectation that Mufasa will not come close to its predecessor's $1.6 billion haul, so a decrease in earning is coming, but dropping but 80% is not likely unless its copies Joker, Fidu or DX. The early signs are positive for Mufasa the Lion King box office when it comes to making at least $356 million worldwide. Box Office Pro's long-range projection of its opening weekend put it at 55 to 85 million. The movie is likely to be a big hit with families over the Christmas holiday season and could only pick up momentum as the release draws closer. Add in the love that other countries have for The Lion King, and Mufasa the Lion King seemingly should have title issue making it past and benchmark. Whether it becomes a hit overall is another story. The one scene in 2019 live action The Lion King that is real and not CGI. 2019 The Lion King faced plenty of criticism for its CGI retelling of the classic Disney story, but the film was still an enormous force to be reckoned with at the box office that helped bolster the company's continuing trend of live action remakes of their most popular animated works. The 2019 remake of The Lion King again tells of Simba's journey with brand new voice performances and visual choices that give it a unique style, separating it from its 1994 counterpart. Despite many similarities between the two Lion King adaptations, the decision to retell The Lion King using CGI characters and location was a controversial one, but it ultimately paid off with some beautiful scenery and more sprawling landscape that helped emphasize the poor scale of this narrative. There were understandable complaints about this decision, which is why the Mufasa sequel is supposedly changing this visual choice. Although many audiences may not have noticed that one scene in the movie didn't actually include any CGI at all. The Lion King's opening scene was practically filmed in Africa. The opening scene of Jon Favreau's Lion King remake is the only part of the movie that was not created using computer imagery. The sequence was shot on location in Africa, depicting the terrain of the desert and the plains exactly as they are in real life. The director recently revealed this on X as the scene is so brief that it's almost impossible to notice it and he had not been brought up before. The decision to open The Lion King with a real shot of the African plains is a smart one that helps build the film's realism and gradually introduce the audience to its CGI style. Without this small movement of natural imaginary, it would have been more difficult to get used to the uncanny animals and their computer animated movement. This shot places the audience straight into the location and makes the transition less jarring. Why 2019 The Lion King only include one real shot? Although the inclusion of this real life shot is a nice touch, it would have been too difficult to adopt the same approach for the scene where animals are involved, which is the majority of the film. VFX artist has mixed opinions on The Lion King's use of CGI, but admittedly, the film made the right decision of sticking to one medium rather than flicking between CGI and real animals. Since there are no animals involved in this opening shot, it was a smart and feasible decision to ditch the CGI for this The Lion King movement, but any longer would have been difficult. Does The Lion King 2019 have an end credits scene? Disney's The Lion King 2019 is a photoreal CGI remake of the animated classic, but does it have an end credits scene teasing a sequel? The Lion King is the latest movie from Disney animated classic Walt to get the live action treatment, following the likes of Cinderella, Beauty and the Beast, and The Jungle Book. While each of those movies had human characters, The Lion King does not, and is not technically live action as a result. Instead, director Jon Favreau put a hyper-realistic spin on The Lion King using CGI, while the majority of the story remains the same. For the remake of The Lion King, Disney assembled an all-star cast that include the likes of Donald Glover as Simba, Beyoncé Knowles-Carter as Nala, Chiwetel Ejiofor as Scar, Seth Rogen as Pumbaa, Billy Eichner as Timon, John Oliver as Zazu, and Alfre Woodard as Rabi, as seen in the Lion King trailers. The cast comes together to put a new spin on the beloved tale of lions and other wild animals, acting out a loose adaptation of William Shakespeare's Hamlet. Given how beloved the 1994 animated version of The Lion King is by many Disney fans, Favreau's remake is one of the Mouse House's most anticipated movies of the year, and now it's finally hitting theaters. With The Lion King releasing around the world, moviegoers may be wondering if there's anything after the credit that they need to stick around for. The Lion King 2019 does not have a post-credit scene or any other extra scene or Easter eggs after the credit finish rolling. Though the credits are always worth watching to see who is involved in the making of the movies, who is checking out The Lion King in theater should not expect any end credit scene after the film. While the original animated live-action did not have a theatrical release sequel, it did receive two direct-to-video follow-ups. The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, about Simba's own daughter, and The Lion King 1 that revolved around Timon and Pumbaa. So there's a material for a potential sequel to this year's movie, although Simba's Pride is still a beloved animated movie among Lion King fans. It's unclear if Disney is open to making a CGI sequel. The only sequel to one of their live-action properties that's released so far was 2016 Alice Through the Looking Glass, which flopped miserably. However, Disney does have Maleficent Mistress of Evil releasing this year and the Jungle Book 2 in the works, so a sequel seems possible. Of course, a post-credit scene doesn't necessarily need to set up a sequel. In fact, animated Disney movies have included post-credit scenes that are simply extra jokes added into the movie. It certainly would have made sense to do something like the with the Lion Kings, especially given the comedic talent of Rogen, Eichner, and Oliver. But Favreau chose to forego any kind of joke or extra Easter egg at the end of The Lion King. So, moviegoers checking out Disney's latest in theaters simply need to know that there's no The Lion King post-credit scene to wait around for at the end of the film. Disney money-spinning decision to recycle its animated back catalog with live-action remake continue space. In the past few years, we have had Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland and Dumbo, Neil Bernard's Cinderella, Bill Connor's Beauty and Beast, and Guy Ritchie's Aladdin. Coming up are Nicky Caro's Mulan, Rob Marshall, The Little Mermaid, and many, many more. Although consistently profitable, the reason for those robots' existence remains questionable. Did Emma Watson make a better build than the Drawn star of Disney 1991 animation just because she is real? With this new and particularly faithful version of The Lion King, however, the question is not whether a live action remake can improve on an animated classic, rather, it's what we should call an animated movie that entirely mimics reality while featuring no live action whatsoever. Anyone who has enjoyed an epic-laden 21st century superhero movie will know the entire sequence and indeed characters are efficiently high-tech animation. Iron Man director Jon Favreau's 2016 remake of The Jungle Book was billed as part of Disney's live-action slate, but beyond the figure of Neil Sethi's Mowgli, almost nothing in the film was live for The Lion King, which features no human character. Favreau has simply taken things to other logical conclusions using cutting-edge technology to create something that looks absolutely real while remaining absolutely unreal. We open with a carnival of Babylonry, lifelike creature from the crawling ant to the leaping ant low, merrily gambling through the circle of life, remembering that sense of wonder you feel seeing the majestic heads of dinosaurs for the first time in Jurassic Park. I got that same sensation gasping at that frockling beast as they follow the familiar story of a young lion struggle to live up to his idol-sized fathers. Wondering whether I should be applauding the animators or animal trainers while Arslan is the Chronicles of Narnia. Movies may have simmered with an air of digital efficiently a decade ago. Mufasa's mane looks so natural you feel you could reach out and stroke it. As for the savanna landscapes, their apparent tangibility seems perfect suited to the phrase that echoes throughout The Lion King. Everything the light touches is as if cinematographer Caleb's Denchel had physically ventures into another world, bathed in the honey-drop glow of an everlasting magic hours. Equally well evoked are the haunting halls of the expedition to find the elephant's graveyard and the barren landscapes of the post-Musafa Pride lands, heavy on the carcass. All these settings were designed within a game engine that renders as virtual environments through which a camera crew could move, mimicking the angles and imperfections of live-action shooting. The effect is impressive, blending an apparent human touch to a computer-generated world, creating the crossingly physical illusion of comprehensics. There are problems with this format. It's one thing seeing a cartoon line sing, but watching photorealistic recreation of animals speaking with bursting into song is altogether harder to swallow. As ever, the mouth movement are an issue, but the main stumbling block is conceptual rather than technical. Does photorealism actually sell such as integrity, festival narrative? On stage, The Lion King became a huge hit because the theatrical techniques used to tell his steady story required the audience to use their imagination. There's a little space left for that kind of collaborative experience here, as every detail is filled in down to the very last pixel. In the voice cast, Donald Glover and Beyoncé Carter make the roles of Simba and Nala their own, while John Oliver's take over from Rowan Atkinson as new reading horrible Zazu. Once again, Scar's inherent weakness is signaled not only by his lackey beat but by the fact that he is played by a British actor with impressive Shakespearean credential. Chiwetel Ejiofor giving Jeremy Irons a run for his money in the Evil Uncle Stakes. Seth Rogen and Billy George have fun as Watchdog Pomba and Meerkat Timon respectively, reminding us the Hakuna Matata is basically the bare necessities with balls on as they teach Simba to chill out and eats grubs, concluding the life is not a self-sustaining circle but a meaningless line of indifferences. Meanwhile, original star James Earl Jones retained his little as most trusted voice in the world in the role of Mufasa, delivering industrial strange words of sloppy wisdom about an ancestors looking down for the sky. New songs augment the old favorites while Hans Zimmer's score doesn't so much rewrite the original as subtly reconfigures its architecture. I'm still not sure what the point of it all is, but it does offer a vision of a future in which the traditional distinction between the action and animation have dissolved into nothing less. The Lion King, it may be a long time before viewers can appreciate the 2019 remake of the 1994 version was Helmet and Bambi on the African Wild, a childhood shaping Oscar winning blockbuster, the second highest grossing movie feature film of its calendar year. One of the last great hand drawn Disney animated features, Pixar's original Toy Story came out 18 months later and a tear producing machine. This remake was controversial long before it opened, mainly because it seems to take the Walt Disney Company's new banding strategy, making beloved animated films as CGI dependent live action spectaculars. So, its most drastic conclusion, it sets up the same story with different actors, different arrangements of beloved songs and soundtrack cues, a couple of original tones, a few flash scenes and sequences, and of course photorealistic animals. The latter are the movie's main selling point, so believable that one of my kids remarked afterward that sitting through the film was like watching a nature documentary on mute while the soundtrack to original The Lion King played in the background. But here's the thing, the movie is helmed by a Disney veteran, actor director Jon Favreau, who is great at this kind of thing, and this might be his best director film if you judge barely in terms of how the scenes and sequences have been framed, lit and cut together. The cinematographer is Caleb Deschel, who shot some of the greatest live action animal adventure in movie history, including the Black Stallion. And this production straightforwardly owns the notion of realness, modeling its animals on actual creatures, defining character more throughout body type and ingenious details of movement than through facial expression, which might have looked kinda creepy here. Honestly, the animals are a little bit creepy at times, though not as creepy as it Andy Serkis Molly, where you sometimes felt as if you were watching top secret footage of giant split animal humans. Favreau broke into filmmaking with such hip indie comedies as Swingers and made then improbably transforms himself into a junior version of Steven Spielberg or James Cameron, overseeing the biggest of big budget properties, including the first two Iron Man films and Disney's recent hyper real make of the Jungle Book. This may be his most daunting challenge, or at least his most provocative if you cherish the source material. The very idea of pursuing to remake Disney's most financially successful late period animated film with the latest in computer generated imagery while continually reminding people of the original by recycling the same story and music and many of the same iconic shots and locations, including the line discontinuity shape private rock is as close as Hollywood gets to courting charges of blasphemy. Visually, the original was 88 minutes worth of stylized paintings in motion like a child's storybook come to life, but with expressionistic or psychedelic elements like the freaky green highlight in the Be Prepared sequence and the stylized hellfire and skewed camera angles during the end battle that tickle the sensibility of film buff parents. In contrast, his new Lion King is rooted deeply in the real, from its plain, sometimes drab colors to the animals' intricately rendered bone structure, muscles, and fur, even when the characters are singing the familiar songs and repeating the familiar lines are in one hilarious and oddly postmodern interlude quoting another Disney movie. The entire crew is working double overtime to convince you that these creatures exist that they shit for and drop Scott on the jungle floor. Favreau and Dangel's camera are camera. This is a digital movie built from ones and zeros, follows closely behind the animals as they glow through grasslands, scale cliff and hills. Tumble and wrestle and fight and rumps through water and rain. It's as if they were real animals with intelligence and agency who allowed camera crews to follow them rather than eating them. Disney always release animal documentaries in addition to their animated and live action features, and this one sometimes feels like a very basic one from the 1950s, where an editor would cut to an unremarkable close up for a beer panting in the summer heat, and the narrator would tell you it was sad because it missed its mom. It's impossible to deny that this movie represents a technical milestone. We have seen digitized version of real animal before, perhaps most strikingly in the recent Planet of the Apes movies and in Favreau's Jungle Book, but they are presented so matter of factly by Favreau that if they did not talk and sing, and if you squared just a bit, you had never know that they were not the real deal. And the filmmaking itself adds credibility. The camera again, there is no camera, just CGI, seems to have weight when it flies over Africa. You had swear it had been attached to an actual helicopter. When the elder Lion King Mustafa Jones, the only actor from the original reprising this part, scaled the walls of a cannon to rescue his son from rampaging wild beast unleashed by his evil brother Scar, it's clear that the filmmaker had put a lot of thought into how a 400-pound alpha predator would do such a thing, whereas the original was content with the lion climbs up the rocks. Of course, there's something to be said of sticking to the line claims of the rock rather than proving to know that how to answer the question how does a 400-pound lion climbs up a rock. The dad joke is anyway he wants to, but animator needs more director than that. It's easy to make a case that lions and hyenas and baboons and hornbill and antelopes drawn with ink and paint with an eye towards the simple yet daring gesture rather than nature. Channel texture registered as more emotional real than things that might be mistaken for photos, especially when they are doing wonderful wordplay and delivering sad monologues and singing songs by Elton John and Tim Rice. But that doesn't fly, not anymore, because the movie industry has conditioned audience to think that reality and believability are the greatest of all creative virtues and that the live action blockbuster is the coolest, most respectively way to tell a story. That's why visually daring animated films like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse only make a fraction of the box office haul of more literal-minded live-action Marvel movies, and it's why almost every spectacle-driven live-action and I have the blockbuster from Marvel and DC to the Star Wars franchise and the American Godzilla films and the Transformers and even Pixar are obsessed with making sure the countertops and pavement and glass and hair and skin and fur and fire and water looked photographically real and that everything moves believably even you are watching wisecracking toys or combat droid or city destroying kaiju. To quite a friend if you follow the creative impulse too selfishly it's like using a magic wand to make a toast. Where you fall on this stuff is anyone guess if you care about it all. You might not, and that's okay, but it should be said that even if you are not obsessed with cinema, mentor, this film is still a fascinating artistic experience. And less resemblance of Farah's previous photorealistic Disney animated picture, The Jungle Book, than of Gus Van Sant 1998 remake of Alfred Hitchcock Psycho, a crusty that was not quite short but got rarely close. Watching The Lion King reminded me of seeing the Psycho remake in the theater and hearing people scream.
The snow is falling, the bells are calling. It's the time of year we hold so dear. Lights are twinkling, hearts are jingling, smiles and laughter everywhere we cheer. Feel the magic in the air, love and kindness we all share. Wrap the world in joy and peace. Let's make this Christmas never cease. Oh, Christmas joy is here, let's sing it loud and clear. With family, friends and love, this season brings us near. Oh, Christmas joy is here, let's spread it far and wide. Together hand in hand with hearts so full of pride. Candles glowing, our faces showing the warmth of love in every home. Cookies baking, memories making, underneath the mistletoe we roam. Feel the magic in the air, love and kindness we all share. Wrap the world in joy and peace. Let's make this Christmas never cease. Oh, Christmas joy is here, let's sing it loud and clear. With family, friends and love, this season brings us near. Oh, Christmas joy is here, let's spread it far and wide. Together hand in hand with hearts so full of pride. Let's dance around the Christmas tree with dreams as bright as they can be. The stars above shine down so bright, a guiding glow this festive night. Oh, Christmas joy is here, let's sing it loud and clear. With family, friends and love, this season brings us near. Oh, Christmas joy is here, let's spread it far and wide. Together hand in hand with hearts so full of pride. Oh, Christmas joy is here, it's the best time of the year. Let's make it last, let's hold it tight. Merry tonight. Oh, Christmas joy is here. It's the best time of the year. Let's make it last, let's hold it tight. Merry Christmas to all tonight.